In 1928, an Italian mother in a cramped New York basement cooked dinner while her husband made illegal wine. She fed a room of lawbreakers instantly by inventing a meal that never existed in her home country. That meal is number 12 on this list. Number 5 hid behind a 2-ton door. Number 10 was a $3 steak served in a room built on stolen culture. These 25 meals were designed for one primary factor: survival. They kept a forbidden dining culture alive under federal threat, representing the speakeasy meals that history buried. Meal number 25 is deviled eggs. In the dim light of basement gin joints, bartenders needed food that asked no questions. Hard-boiled eggs were halved and stuffed with mayonnaise, mustard, and paprika. They were prepared hours in advance and sat cold on the bar. If the police battered down the door, a tray of eggs could be tipped into the trash in 2 seconds flat, leaving no evidence of a working kitchen. Generations of grandmothers made them for free at church potlucks. Today, craft cocktail bars charge $16 for a truffle version of a meal designed to be thrown away during a federal raid. Number 24 is salted peanuts. The most unassuming bull in the bar was quietly funding the mob. They were roasted, salted, and set out for free. Yet the supply chain belonged to Al Capone. His associate Leonard Japp ran the peanuts, pretzels, and cigarettes to thousands of speakeasies across Chicago. Those humble peanuts built an empire that eventually became Jay's Foods, feeding generations of Americans. A handful of peanuts paid for the most notorious organized crime syndicate in history. Modern bars call them artisanal and charge $8. Number 23 is soft pretzels. Speakeasies did not serve food out of the goodness of their hearts. They served it to keep patrons thirsty. The recipe required only flour, water, yeast, and a heavy hand of salt. The tradition of the free lunch died with legal saloons, but illegal bars kept the salty snacks. Every minute a customer stayed inside was another chance to sell them overpriced liquor before the sirens wailed. The pretzel was practically free. A salty trick to empty wallets. Today, menus charge $14 for the privilege of a Bavarian pretzel with beer cheese. Number 22 is olives in the dirty martini. Patrons ordered this to prove they belonged in a ballroom, not a basement. Green olives were dropped into dry vermouth and gin. The dirty martini, heavy with olive brine, served a darker, desperate purpose. Bootleg liquor during Prohibition was notoriously dangerous. Bathtub gin tasted like poison, and sometimes it actually was. The sharp, overwhelming salt of the olive brine masked the foul taste of homemade alcohol that could literally cause blindness. The olive was a class signal that shielded patrons from the taste of wood alcohol. Today, that exact same drink costs $22 in a speakeasy-themed bar where the danger is entirely make-believe. Number 21 is Oysters Rockefeller. When this hit the table, patrons knew the evening was going to be expensive and highly illegal. Fresh oysters were baked on the half-shell, bubbling with butter, green herbs, breadcrumbs, and anise liqueur. It was the signature appetizer of Gatsby-era dinner parties and high-end underground clubs. It was named after the richest man in America because no ordinary name could match its decadence. Number 20 is shrimp cocktail. This was the primary party starter of the 1920s. Plump, chilled shrimp were arranged around a glass of sharp red cocktail sauce. Historical accounts suggest that empty martini glasses, suddenly illegal to use for drinks, were repurposed to display the shrimp. It signaled that dinner was a special occasion, serving as an elegant first course for people actively breaking federal law. In the 1920s, ordering a shrimp cocktail proved a patron had money to burn. Modern food writers call it dated, ignoring its status as the original taste of underground rebellion. The underground economy transformed American dining conventions completely. Before Prohibition, dining was almost exclusively a sit-down affair. Corporate catering companies claimed the origin of modern appetizer culture, but the physical reality was engineered in the shadows. Number 19 is lobster Newburg. This dish embodies the absolute defiance of the era. Lobster meat was poached in butter and cream, enriched with egg yolks, and fortified with illegal cognac. Serving this luxurious seafood in a rich liquor sauce while actively breaking federal law was the ultimate act of the wealthy declaring their immunity to consequence. It was originally born from a petty grudge between a sea captain and a restaurant owner, yet it became the height of underground luxury. Number 18 is chicken a la king. This was comfort food dressed in evening wear. Diced chicken, mushrooms, and pimentos were simmered in a velvety cream sauce spiked with sherry. then ladled over toast points. It dominated menus from basement speakeasies to high-end home dinner parties. The dish was a glorified chicken stew that made lawbreakers feel like they were dining at a five-star restaurant. Once the crown jewel of restaurant menus, it practically vanished when a generation forgot how to execute proper sauce techniques. Number 17 is the Waldorf salad. Apples, celery, walnuts, and mayonnaise were served over lettuce. Invented by a headwaiter at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel, it became the most famous salad in American history. Its presence during this era stood in stark contrast to the reality of the streets. The Waldorf salad was the legal public face of New York dining elegance, served in the exact same city that secretly harbored 32,000 illegal speakeasies. It provided an innocent cover story while bootleg gin flowed just below the pavement. Number 16 is lobster canapes, featuring flaked lobster served on buttered toast rounds. The finger food revolution was not started by corporate caterers or elite chefs. It was engineered by illegal bar owners who needed to feed standing customers in crowded basements. Speakeasies had no space and no guarantee a patron would ever secure a table. Food had to become instantly portable. Customers required items small enough to eat with one hand while holding illicit liquor in the other, ready to drop both if the police battered the door down. The modern appetizer architecture was born entirely from law-breaking. Number 15 is caviar rolls. Cream cheese was spread on small bread and topped with sturgeon caviar. Upscale speakeasies used caviar as a definitive marker of exclusivity. If a club served this, it signaled a secure, high-end establishment rather than a dangerous basement dive where the liquor carried lethal risk. Serving the finest food in the world inside a room functioning as an active federal crime scene created the ultimate American contradiction. In the 1920s, it was served in illegal bars. Today, legal restaurants charge over $100 an ounce for it, yet the thrill of the danger is completely gone. Number 14 is the cheese ball, and number 13 is the crab meat cocktail. When imported cheeses like Roquefort and Swiss gained popularity in the 1920s, speakeasy operators realized they could assemble massive platters without a functioning kitchen staff. The cheese ball, mixed with cream cheese and rolled in nuts by hand, became the efficient centerpiece. Alongside it sat the crab meat cocktail, chilled and served in a glass with sharp lemon and sauce. Food in this era deliberately adopted the vocabulary of the forbidden. Calling a simple appetizer a cocktail borrowed the danger and glamour of the illicit liquor trade. Today, modern bars charge $24 for artisanal cheese boards. A standard family party recipe was literally born in a speakeasy. Number 12 is spaghetti and meatballs. The most transformative cultural export in food history was born in the dark. In Italy, immigrants had spent 75% of their income on food. Meat was an unreachable luxury, and meatballs were the size of marbles, served only in soup. Upon arriving in America, they discovered sudden abundance. The meatball swelled to the size of a baseball, smothered in red sauce and served over dried pasta. Italian-American speakeasy owners served this heavy, comforting meal while mothers cooked in the back and fathers pressed illegal wine in the cellar. Italy does not even claim this dish. It is entirely American, born of immigrant survival and defiance. Today, a plate at Carbone in New York City costs $36. Decades ago, it was simply called Sunday dinner. Number 11 is chop suey. This was a chaotic hot wok stir-fry of meat, bean sprouts, mushrooms, and water chestnuts slicked in a thick sauce. By the 1920s, it was as popular as hot dogs and apple pie. Chinese restaurants survived the bloodiest years of Prohibition, simply because their traditional dining culture never relied on alcohol sales. While grand fine dining establishments went bankrupt, chop suey houses operated in plain sight and thrived. Palaces like Chin Lee on Broadway fed hundreds of gallons of it to dancing patrons every single night. Modern late-night Chinese takeout is an American tradition that exists entirely because a constitutional amendment destroyed competing business models. Number 10 is the Cotton Club venison steak. Broiled meat was served on fine china with French fried potatoes. Waiters in red tuxedos moved with studied elegance through a room decorated with painted slave quarters. The menu offered filet mignon for $3, roughly equivalent to $55 today. The exquisite food masked a horrific American reality. The club was operated by a mobster named Auntie Madden as an outlet for bootleg beer. The artists playing the revolutionary jazz were African American, but the patrons eating the venison were strictly white. Black customers were barred from entering until 1935. The poet Langston Hughes categorized it as a Jim Crow club for gangsters and moneyed whites. The food was real, and the talent was real. The price of admission was a whites-only policy enforced by organized crime, a transaction no amount of money should ever buy again. Corporate historians claim that modern American dining was shaped by culinary schools and visionary chefs. The data proves otherwise. The modern restaurant industry was accidentally engineered in basements, behind locked doors, by people actively hiding from the federal government. Number 9 includes fried chicken and barbecued spare ribs. At the Cotton Club, the menu deliberately labeled this Harlem cuisine. It was sold as an exotic spectacle for wealthy white tourists who sat in front of a painted backdrop of slave quarters while they ate. The food was real, and the talent on stage was revolutionary. Yet the African-American artists who created that culture could not even eat at their own workplace. Number 8 and number 7 are finger sandwiches and stuffed celery. While the wealthy ate venison, the rest of the underground ate crustless white bread filled with cream cheese or egg salad. These tiny sandwiches operated as the great social equalizer of the speakeasy. Rich and poor, legal and illegal, everyone ate the same tiny sandwiches with their fingers while jazz played. For the first time in American history, women were openly drinking alongside men, and they all shared the same stuffed celery from the same relish trays. Prohibition made the finger sandwich a symbol of rebellion. Decades later, the revolution became domesticated, and today the exact same items are served at baby showers. Number 6 is mushroom toast. Sautéed mushrooms were piled onto savory toast points. If a speakeasy served hot food, it proved the owner had invested in a real kitchen, rather than a quick hustle. Hot canapes acted as a silent promise. They signaled that the establishment intended to remain open the following day. Today, wild mushroom bruschetta costs $15, but in the 1920s, it was classified as survival bar food. Number 5 is the 21 Club's secret dinner menu. This was not a basement dive, it was an illegal empire. To access the hidden wine cellar, patrons had to pass a 2.5-ton door disguised as a solid brick wall. It could only be opened by inserting a single meat skewer into a tiny, specific hole. If federal agents raided the place, the bartender pushed a button, and a custom lever system swept the liquor bottles down chutes straight into the New York sewers. The establishment was never successfully raided. They survived the era by serving a full, exquisite, multi-course dinner that rivaled any legal restaurant. By 1950, they were charging $2.75 for a hamburger when most coffee shops charged a dime. Number 4 is veal parmigiana. Breaded, fried cutlets were smothered in mozzarella and marinara. This dish does not exist in Italy. It was invented by Italian immigrants using the abundant, cheap meat available in America combined with the sauces of their homeland. The iconic American red sauce joint was engineered in speakeasy basements, where grandmothers cooked while their husbands made wine downstairs. Today, Carbone in New York charges $70 for their veal parmigiana. The generations who invented it charged nothing. Number 3 is stuffed clams. Little neck clams were opened, topped with seasoned breadcrumbs, garlic, and butter, then baked until golden. In Italy, these immigrant families had lived in severe austerity. When they arrived in America, they discovered an abundance of cheap food and aggressively added symbols of wealth to their cooking. Every stuffed clam served in a speakeasy represented an act of pure joy by people who had known deep hunger. This specific dish was not about survival. It was the physical manifestation of finally not having to survive. Modern artisanal baked clams cost $18. The immigrants who engineered them were simply grateful to have enough food to feed their families. Number 2 includes quiche Lorraine and chicken pot pie. At 86 Bedford Street in Greenwich Village, there was a bar with no sign on the door called Chumley's. It served hearty, warm comfort food like chicken pot pie and quiche. F. Scott Fitzgerald consistently sat at table 26, fueling the greatest literature of the jazz age with illegal whiskey and pie. When the police called ahead to warn of an incoming raid, the bartender ushered customers out the back door. Historical consensus points to this specific protocol as the origin of the phrase, getting 86'd. The greatest American writers broke the law in a hidden courtyard. Number one is the Italian-American Sunday dinner. The most emotionally powerful speakeasy meal was not a single dish, but an entire family experience executed behind a locked door. It featured a massive spread of antipasto, braciole, and spaghetti simmering in red sauce all day long, while homemade wine was pressed in the cellar. The children were sent upstairs, and the adults sat down to eat together in a room legally classified as a federal crime scene. Patrons whispered a password just to get inside. This was dinner as an act of absolute rebellion. This was family structure operating as defiance. Citizens risked arrest simply to share a meal together on their own terms. That specific meal structure did not exist in Italy. It was engineered in America, in secret, behind locked doors. These meals were never just about caloric intake. The entire American restaurant tradition was born behind those locked speakeasy doors. They provided a mechanism to maintain dignity and culture when federal law explicitly criminalized the environment. Generations of immigrants did not need a Michelin star to create a legacy. They required a big pot, a locked door, and the sheer nerve to break the law to feed their families.